It smells like grannies. Hi and welcome to my channel. My name is Sarah and I love to talk about books. And today I'm going to talk to you about books while I do my makeup, which is why I'm looking a little bit rough at the moment. This is quite a brave choice, making a video where I have no makeup on. You can see all my freckles, all my red bits, all my dark circles, but we're going to cover it all up and talk about books while I'm doing it. I haven't prepared for this tag, so my answers are going to be pretty off the cuff. So let's just see how we go. So step number 1 is primer, and the question for this is a book that left a lasting impression on you. So I have 2 primers that I kind of go between. This one, which is a Boots number 7 one, and I also have one by The Ordinary, which I cannot for the life of me figure out where I've put it. So a book that left a lasting impression on me. I think it's probably going to be The Great Gatsby, because as a teen I did read a lot, but the books I read were not they were not the sort of ones that you're ever going to sit an exam about. I love The Babysitter's Club, Sweet Valley High, all of that sort of stuff, Point Horror, and my mum was really keen for me to up my reading game. So she spoke to my English teacher and got a list of prescribed reading, and The Great Gatsby was on it, and I read it at that time. Don't think I really got it. I wasn't that blown away by it, and I think this is a really good example of how you cannot force reading on someone, because really that experience, if I'd made my way through that whole list, I really wish I still had that list, if I'd made my way through that whole list, it might have put me off reading, because at that point in my life I wasn't ready for The Great Gatsby or The Catcher in the Rye, or whatever else was on that list. I came back to it a few years later, reread it, got it, totally loved it. Step number 2 is foundation, and the question for this is your favourite first book in a series. Now I have said many times that I am not a series reader, and even from a young age, when I did read series like The Babysitter's Club and stuff, I never read through them in order. I used to get them out of the library, so I would just go for whatever ones were on the shelves and which sounded best. And that's kind of stayed with me. I don't really like series. I don't know if it's the commitment or if they just don't normally belong to a genre that I read. But I read The Widows of Malabar Hill by Sir Massey, and that's the first in the Perveen Minstrey series. So this is a bit of a mystery series set in India. Perveen is a solicitor in her father's firm, and there are restrictions on women in India. I can't remember when it's set. Is it set in the 60s? I can't remember. But particularly at that time, I think women weren't allowed in court. They weren't allowed to practice law in the same way that men were. But she does still do some legal work, and the wives of a man who has passed away, and they are in purdah, which means they are living in seclusion and they're not allowed to be around men. And there are issues with the will. There is a shady business partner involved, and because she is a woman, Perveen can get closer to these widows than anyone else, and so she gets quite involved in the case. And I just thought it was, it's an interesting mystery as well, but it gave a really great insight into that part of a culture that I didn't know before, but in a really fun, accessible way. So I would eventually like to get to the next book in that series. I never said what foundation I use. This is an Arbonne one. I have mixed feelings about Arbonne, but my friend sells it. But out of the other Arbonne things I've tried, actually I think this one's probably more worth the money than the other ones are. It does last a long time. I think it gives quite a nice coverage as well. and I'm supporting my friend when I buy it. Step 3 is concealer, and the question for this one is the character you wish you could get rid of. And really, the first one that comes to mind, I wish I could get rid of the whole book. So last year I read American Psycho by Bret, Easton, Ellis, and to be honest, it was the biggest pile of crap I've ever put myself through. I kept going because I quite, I don't think liked is is the right term to use, but I'd seen the film years ago with Christian Bale in it, and I thought it was quite funny in a satirical way. I felt it was a real comment on that kind of yuppie money and things focused lifestyle, and so I thought that's what I was going to get from the book, but I feel that the book doesn't do that as well, because it just felt like an excuse for Bret Easton Ellis to really air all his misogynistic thoughts. I didn't think it was very clever, and to be honest, it wasn't even very interesting to read. We're not meant to like Patrick Bateman, obviously, but he just wasn't interesting. I do wish I'd DNF'd that book, and I think we could all do without Patrick Bateman's in this world. I never managed to really conceal my under eye that well. I had these really kind of pronounced bags under my eyes, so I can take away the darkness, but you can always kind of see that they're there. Maybe one day I'll get like some sort of eye lift or something, Botox and all these sorts of things. Oh yeah, my concealer, I mean you can't even read what it is, but it's Fit Me concealer by Maybelline. It's alright. I've never found a concealer that's totally blown me away. I've tried some expensive ones, and this is a fairly cheap one, and I think they all work the same, so I'm not picky about concealers. Step 4 is powder, and the question for this is your favourite last book in a series. Seriously, BookTube, can we stop with the series? I don't have an answer for this, so I don't think I've ever finished one. I maybe finished Ransom Riggs, what was that series called? Miss Peregrine, Peculiar Children, but you know, that wasn't great, so it's not going to be a favourite. Yeah, I don't have an answer for this one. Yes, you will notice I'm not using a powder brush, put my powder on. I know pretty much nothing about makeup, but I'm using loose powder. This is the first time I've tried loose powder, and it's okay, but it's really messy, and that's why I'm too scared to use a proper powder brush, because this one I just pick up like the tiniest bit at a time, and even then it makes a heck of a mess. Now that's another cheapie, it's just Rimmel powder. Step 5 is eyebrows, and it's a book that you think everyone should read. So my eyebrows, I use Benefit's Browsings, and I probably do them wrong. I've just found a way that works for me. I don't have great eyebrows, as you can see. They're quite patchy. They're not... I have quite unruly eyebrow hairs as well. Like, they just want to do their own thing, man. So don't judge how I do these. So a book I think everyone should read. That's such a hard question to answer, because I don't think anyone should read any book, to be honest. Just you do you. As long as you're reading, I don't really care. But for the purposes of answering this question, I think everyone should read We Should All Be Feminists by Chimamanda Adichie. Oh no, that's terrible. I can't remember her name. And I'm not in a position to look it up right now, guys. But I'm pretty sure everyone's heard of it. She also wrote Americana and Purple Hibiscus. And I think that's probably one that everyone should read. Not because it's perfect, but because it's short, it's to the point, and really, like the title says, everybody should be a feminist. I think books about social issues are probably far more up there on the should reads list than any classics or anything. I think our world really needs to get shit together, and books can do that. And step 6 is eyeshadow, and the question for this is a book that has your favourite colours on the cover. So if I was going on a night out or something, then I would use my Naked 2 palette because I bloody love that. But because I'm literally not doing anything much today, I'm going to use my cheapy Rimmel palette instead. And like days like today, I wouldn't always wear eyeshadow actually. I would just like pop on a bit of mascara and the rest of my makeup. But I don't always put on eyeshadow, but for the purposes of this tag, we're going to do it today. And a book that has my favourite colours on the cover. So I don't know if you can tell from behind me, but I absolutely love like teals and turquoises and sea greens. Like I just think they are delicious. So it would have to be a book with teal on the cover. And obviously I'm not looking at my books right now, so I can't think off the top of my head, but I do absolutely adore the cover for the Essex Serpent, which I'll pop on the screen. Well, I'm going to pop all the books on the screen that I'm talking about. I just think that is gorgeous because not only has it got some really lush colours, but also, you know, nature. I love a bit of nature on a book cover. So yeah, I would go for that one. So the way I've got my camera, when I slump, which I'm really bad for doing, I realise that I'm not even in shot, so half of this video is probably going to be the top of my head. Yeah, and this is where you will see that I don't have a clue what I'm doing when it comes to makeup. I just kind of slap it on in kind of variations of a tone. I love kind of browns. I like blacks and greys as well. I don't really use a lot of colour in my eyeshadow unless it's like for a fancy dress or something. I went to a couple of 80s themed 40th birthdays last year, and really enjoyed using like bright pinks and electric blues for my makeup. That was fun. But yeah, I'm usually pretty boring when it comes to eyeshadows. I just want to give my eyes some definition. So I'm not an artiste. Oh, my eyes watering now. Kind of look like I've been punched in the face. But yeah, I love a lovely cover. How many times can you say love there? Everybody say love. But yeah, I do appreciate a nice cover. Because I buy a lot of my books secondhand, obviously I don't really get a say in what editions of books I buy. But I do think right now the cover game is strong. Step 7 is eyeliner, and the question for this is to pick a dark and mysterious book. Now, like I said, I'm not really doing anything today. I've got a whole selection of eyeliners. I've got like pencil eyeliners, but I prefer a kind of like a gel one. But because I'm not doing anything today, my little, it's not a trick. It's not like I invented it, but I just use a darker shadow. Instead of an eyeliner, because I think sometimes eyeliner can look quite severe. And I'm not about severity, so there we go. So dark and mysterious book. I do like a bit of gothic in my fiction, so I'm thinking what comes to mind straight away is The 13th Tale by Diane Setterfield, which I bloody loved. That's, you know, it's got a dark, mysterious house. There's an old library in it. There's a creepy older woman who is an author and has her most famous book is called The 13th Tale, but it's only got 12 stories in it, and I think they are about her life, but she's notorious for making up versions of her life when talking to journalists and things. And our narrator is a autobiographer, but not like hugely successful, but for some reason this author selects her to write her autobiography, and it's full of family secrets and mysteries, and it blew me away. I absolutely love it, and I've loved Rebecca as well. Rebecca's quite dark and mysterious too. Yeah, I do like a gothic book. So step 8 is mascara, and for this you're to pick a long book, because that's how we all want our lashes. My favourite ever mascara, I don't bother buying any others because this is the shit, is They're Real by Benefit. This is the best stuff ever. It doesn't budge. I just love it. This one is, I'm like scraping the bottom of the barrel of this tube though, so I'm probably not going to represent it very well as I try to put it on. So a long book. I think the longest book I've read in the past few years was Lanark by Alasdair Gray. I think that's, it's over 500 anyway. And that is such a strange book. So Alasdair Gray is or was, I think he's passed away, a Scottish writer. I've not read any of his other works, but Lanark is, it's how do you describe Lanark? It's kind of sci-fi, or is it fantasy, but also set in 1950s Glasgow. It's about this artist who, I think he's Lanark. I think his name is Lanark. So there's his story of him trying to be an artist in Glasgow in the 50s, but then there's also this kind of parallel story of him where all this weird shit happens. This is the worst description of a book ever. Why didn't I just pick something like Anna Karenina? Everyone knows what that's about. Right, we're going to scrap this. We're going to come back after I finish my makeup and I will describe this ruddy book to you. Step 9 is blush, and the question for this is to talk about a book that has some cringeworthy romance in it. I'm not a romance reader. I find most romance pretty cringeworthy. My blush is Bourgeois, which you can see has been well used. It smells like grannies. I mean, I like it, but it smells like grannies. Cringeworthy romance. The first one that comes to mind from recent reads is Daughters of the Lake by Wendy Webb. That was just, I don't know. It's funny because after I had read it and slated it in a wrap-up, I saw what Victoria had also read it and really enjoyed it. So, I mean, don't take my word for it on this book, but I just felt there was a lot of cringe in that book. It was a bit schmaltzy. I think, yeah, for me it's schmaltz that makes me cringe. Yeah, I don't really do schmaltz. I don't do insta-love, and it was kind of insta-love. I don't know. Yeah, I don't do romance, so I don't even know how to talk about romance. Step 10 is highlighter, and this is about a book that brightened your day. Now, I actually don't use a proper highlighter. I use this Clinique eyeshadow called Daybreak. It was a tip I got off one of the girls on the Clinique counter that apparently they all swear by. So I got it because I am easily persuaded. And yeah, again, I don't use a proper brush for this. Sorry, guys. It's just, with things like highlighter and contour, I don't want it too in your face, so this is quite nice. So a book that brightened my day. but for me, like, a book that brightens my day is just a book that I really liked. So I will say Scenes of a Graphic Nature by Caroline O'Donoghue is the first one that comes to mind, which might seem a bit strange because it's about a kind of floundering filmmaker visiting the island in Ireland that her father came from, where he was the sole survivor of a school tragedy. And she's made a film of this, but she feels like she never really got the full story from her father, and he is terminally ill, and she just wants to piece it all together. And so she goes with her friend. Their relationship has become a little bit strained recently because they used to partner on films, and her friend has kind of broken away from her, got a career in telly, settled down with a boyfriend, while the main character, whose name, sorry, I can't remember, her life really has been put on pause by her father being ill, and she feels like she's not really getting anywhere with her career. And I just thought this book was so interesting. There's a great mystery in it, but the creation of this, the island is fictional, and the creation of the island and the kind of feelings of the locals versus the tourists and things was something that I've just felt so real. And I loved the journey that the character went on. There's a bit of a romance in there as well, a sapphic romance, and I just thought it was a really a great read, and it was a lot of fun as well. So that's the kind of book that would brighten my day. Step 11 is lipstick, but my lipstick's in my handbag and I can't bother to go and get it, so I'm just going to put on some tinted lip balm. This is a Burt's Bees one. I love Burt's Bees lip balms. So I'm just going to slick it on, because actually the only lipstick that I've got near me is this very red Max Factor one, and I'm not really in a red lip kind of day today, so that will do. So that is my makeup. So I need to sort out this mess that's on the top of my head and put some jewellery on, and then that'll be me. So I don't think I managed to successfully talk about many books during this tag. I almost forgot to come back about Lanark, so let me try this. So it was published about 40 years ago, and it is a life in 4 books. So some of those books tell the story of a man called Thor, I think, and he is in 1950s Glasgow. He's trying to be an artist. He's a really unlikable character, but actually I really liked his part of the story because I'm really interested in 1950s Glasgow. And then the other part of the story is set in kind of a parallel universe with a parallel version of Thor called Lanark in a parallel version of Glasgow in a city called Unthank. And this is just a really bizarre parallel universe where a day could last as long as a week or a year, and lots of strange things happen in this parallel universe. I got lost in some of it a little bit. I struggle sometimes with these particular sorts of male authors who, I think Russian authors were quite bad for this as well, where they do these like big rambling bits just to show how much they know about a certain topic. I can't remember what it is in Lanark, but I know like I really struggled with some of the Russian writers because there was like big long paragraphs and whole sections about politics and farming and all that sort of stuff, and there is a touch of that in Lanark as well, but I ploughed through and I was left kind of thinking like, how the hell do you talk about this book? What do you say about this book? I can't tell if it was genius or a mess, whether I liked it or I didn't. Like, I gave it 4 stars, but I don't think I would repeat the reading experience, but it was an experience. So that's me. I've sorted out my hair a bit. So thanks for joining me as I did a very poor imitation of a makeup influencer and didn't really manage to talk about books particularly well, but I really appreciate you joining me. If you're not subscribed, I'd really appreciate it if you hit that button below. I put up new bookish content every Saturday, and I do promise you that usually I know the titles of books, the names of authors, what the books are about, and I'm generally more prepared for videos. So I think we've learnt a lesson today that Sarah should not try and talk about books off the cuff. But every day's a school day. So yeah, I'm just gonna head off to my mum and dad's now for a bit of lunch. My brother is up from London for the weekend, so that'll be really nice. Haven't seen him since the pandemic kicked off. And so yeah, I'm gonna go and film our Billy. So until next time, bye.